Imagine waking in a panic to find that the hospital where you had spent your gunshot-induced coma is empty. Empty of the living, at least. Rick Grimes, a small-town police officer, wanders this apocalyptic-like world where zombies pose a constant threat, searching for his family. After a few close calls with the flesh-hungry walking dead, he settles with a group of survivors outside Atlanta, Georgia. Not only must the group learn to cope with the thousands of zombies, they struggle to cope with each other as well. By applying the major concepts of the graphic novels that we have learned, we will explore why The Walking Dead, which has inspired a popular television show on AMC, has set the bar much higher for other horror-based graphic novels. Despite the fact that The Walking Dead is full of action-packed fight scenes between the living and the dead, it is set apart from other graphic novels within the horror genre. This zombie-slaying action takes a backseat to what this graphic novel really is, a drama with important character development and emotional conflict. The threat of zombie invasion is simply a secondary conflict to set the stage for the intense emotional scenes that occur between the survivors. Graphic novel critics like Ashley Mays agree that the circumstances within this story allow us to understand the range of psychological changes and interactions that occur between human beings as they experience life or death situations. The universal theme of good versus evil is overshadowed by the consequences that follow when those who are essentially good fight for individual survival. In The Walking Dead, when panel-to-panel is used in a series of frames, it is used to put extra emphasis on the actions that are taking place at that point in time. At a turning point in the story, when a husband and wife are reunited, many frames are dedicated to the two of them sleeping next to their son. At a first glance, it doesn't look like much is going on in the frames because the movements are so little, but the series of frames allows the audience to feel as if they are sitting in on a tender moment. On the other end of the spectrum, Kirkman and Moore use action-to-action when they are displaying a fight scene. The advantage of using action-to-action is that they are able to leave some of the fighting to the imagination of the reader while still showing each side as they combat one another. The text used throughout the comic novel is simply a text of normal size and font. However, all of the text is capitalized, giving everything that is said a more urgent feeling, most likely to remind the reader that the characters are in constant danger and they can never completely rest. When the author wants to emphasize a word in a sentence, he bolds it ever so slightly. Often when the author wants to express extreme emotion, he makes the lines of the word bubbles very thick or even double-lined instead of single-lined. Also, when the author wants to show surprise or yelling of a character, the word bubble transforms from its smooth oval shape to a jagged pointy bubble. The areas in the book that have little to no dialogue vary greatly from the parts of the book that have a lot of dialogue. The spots with little dialogue seem to be spots that are very emotionally intense, and these moments in the book can often fuel themselves with only pictures. For example, these same spots show moments of extreme happiness and comfort, sadness, and terror, just to name a few. Also, the parts of the comic novel with less dialogue help to evoke more emotion in the reader because instead of focusing on the words, the reader can examine the picture more closely and the reader takes in many more details. On the other hand, the parts with dialogue help to drive the story along. The dialogue helps the reader to understand the thoughts of the character better, and the words help the understanding of the story's plot. Looking at the zombies, the illustrator chose to use extreme details in images, such as their decaying skin and their teeth biting into their victim's flesh. The amount of detail used in this graphic novel becomes important because it has a certain impact on the viewer, which facilitates the story and the plotline. The illustrator needed to include this detail so that the viewer can identify with the fear and disgust that the characters are experiencing. Being able to understand these feelings becomes important because it explains why the characters behave the way that they do. It stresses that these monsters put on the characters play into why there are conflicts within the group, which is the main focus of the novel. Without these graphic details, it would be difficult for the viewer to see the characters as real people going through this experience.